Who is Naoya Zen'in without the spoilers? We've all seen the leaks of the Shibuya movie, and with it starting to release all over the world now, we've been seeing an absolute influx of Naoya Zen'in fans. I will say this now, you are all posers, and I'm a real day one. I love him because of the misogyny, not in spite of it like the rest of you tourists. Now, as a result of this new Naoya content with the movie coming out, a lot of people may want to find out who this character is, without getting all of these spoilers about what he does and what happens to him in the grand scheme of Jujutsu Kaisen. Maybe just kind of wanting to understand the vibe of his character, so to speak. What he's like as a person without being spoiled about his potential fate in the manga and the future anime, which is why I'm going to start with this new series. In this video specifically, I will give you an overall brief synopsis, obviously avoiding spoilers about Naoya Zen'in, but going through who he is, when he is introduced to us, his curse technique, his personality, etc. When I'm showing manga panels, I will remove text that I think will contain spoilers, as well as blur out characters who I think will also act as a spoiler if you were to know that they interacted with Naoya. I will also have timestamps and chapters when I go between topics in case you want to avoid certain pieces of information about Naoya. For example, his curse technique, maybe you don't want to know what it is. If you want to avoid spoilers on it, skip to the section after it. I will only be specifically referencing stuff we see in the trailer for Season 3, and any mention of Naoya's actions thereafter will be purposefully vague as to avoid spoiling you beautiful people. So with that being said, I refer you back to the title of this video. Who is Naoya Zen'in? Naoya Zen'in is one of the higher up members of the Zen'in clan. You will be familiar with a few characters who also belong to said clan. Maki Zen'in, despite now being affiliated with Jujutsu Tech, Mai Zen'in, Naobito Zen'in, Toji Zen'in, or Fushiguro, and as a result of Toji's relation, Megumi is also related to said clan. Naoya Zen'in himself is among the higher ranking members of the Zen'ins. This is due to two major factors about Naoya. First of which being that he is the son of Naobito Zen'in. Now, if the name sounds familiar but you can't really place him, Naobito was the old guy who was in the Dagon fight alongside Maki and Nanami in Shibuya. Naoya is this dude's son. The other thing that makes him a higher up in the clan is not only the factor of nepotism due to his father, but also Naoya's actual strength, being that he holds the rank of a special grade 1 sorcerer. Now, just to avoid confusion, I'll quickly explain this specific grade because it isn't as simple as it initially sounds. When you first hear the term special grade 1, a lot of people would assume immediately that it is an intermediary grade of some sort, similar to the semi-grades, like semi-grade 1s and semi-grade 2s. However, that is not the case. It's not that simple. The term special grade 1 is a unique grade that is only applied to those outside of Jujutsu Tech and their internal grading system. So sorcerers inside one of the three great sorcerer clans who don't go to Jujutsu Tech or aren't affiliated with those three clans, or just people who aren't affiliated with Jujutsu Tech as a whole, those aforementioned three clans of course being the Zen'in, Gojo and Kamo clans. The rank itself means that they are deemed to be around or above a grade 1 level, but obviously not at special grade. The adjective special in the title leads to a little bit of confusion, which is fair enough, but the easiest way to view the special grade 1 ranking is as a sorcerer who is at least grade 1 level, but just has nothing to do with Jujutsu Tech. However, between those who hold the rank of special grade 1, there are major power discrepancies, similar with normal grade 1s. There is a scale to how strong each grade 1 is, and they are not made equal. We know of 3 other special grade 1s, one of which being Naobito, who Naoya is of similar strength to, the next of which being Jinichi, who is Toji's brother, and Ogi, Maki and Mai's father. Just knowledge of these characters in of themselves isn't a spoiler, so don't worry about these guys, they're not really too important, they're pretty much just background characters. Now, discarding Naobito since he passes away from his injuries in Shibuya, Naoya is significantly more powerful than his contemporaries, those being Jinichi and Ogi. Other things of note about Naoya and his familial connections is the fact that he apparently has a number of siblings, mostly older brothers apparently, none of which, as far as we're aware, we actually see throughout the course of the series. He has several siblings, yet we just don't see them. We know he has them because he had a throwaway line about how they're all fodder, this being mentioned during his fight with Choso. The fact that he has a fight with Choso, of course, isn't a spoiler, as it is quite heavily highlighted in the promotional material for Season 3's anime, as well as the Shibuya Culling Games movie. One of the more important things about Naoya that isn't immediately apparent on the surface, which is a minor spoiler as it is regarding a character that he respects and admires, and will have much more context, and it will be expanded upon further when Season 3 story comes out, so Naoya is kind of unique and surprisingly open-minded about certain things. Despite the Zenin clan's overall hatred for him, Naoya has a huge respect and adoration for Toji. And in turn, because of his demise, Naoya also has a huge respect for Gojo, as he is of course the one who killed Toji, as we see in the Hidden Inventory arc. I won't expand upon Naoya's relationship with Toji and or Gojo more here, or how it plays into the further narrative. Watch this video that I made a while back to get a much more in-depth analysis of Naoya, if you want it explained more in context. The last thing I will mention about Naoya's character specifically, when it comes to, his personality, it's kind of the elephant in the room whenever you're discussing him. Despite Naoya's seemingly large fan base, he is the final boss of misogyny. Now, upon his introduction, specifically in chapter 138, he blesses us by giving us some of his more traditional views when it comes to gender, well, more so just how he feels about women. So I'm just going to read out some of Naoya's first words in the series, just so you can understand how uber misogyny this man is. I'll say this now, these are his words, not mine, okay? Quote, "Maki may be pretty, but she's unacceptable. She doesn't know how to support a man. Any woman who can't walk 3 steps behind a man should get stabbed in the back and die. In that respect, Maya's great. She's got the same face as Maki and is just as buxom. Though she acts tough, she knows she's a woman." Now that sounds bad. Okay, that sounds really bad, but it gets worse, because if you're curious, the curious type, you're probably wondering who this woman is on the screen here in this panel. Well, the woman he's walking alongside and talking to is Maki and Mai's mother. So not only is he talking absolute smack about these two, he's doing it to their mother's face, literally objectifying and sexualizing, because he mentions how buxom they are, to their mother's face, and Jesus Christ, Naoya, dude. It does not look very good for him at all. There is a reason that this image of perfect misogyny was doing the rounds on Twitter when more footage dropped of the Culling Games episodes. He is cartoonishly sexist, and it can be both comedic and just as astonishing at times. I am merely a casual woman hater. Brother, he is playing ranked, okay? He is a ranked sexist. Grandmaster. It seems like even in the anime they've added extra scenes of Maki and Mai's mother literally tying Naoya's shoelaces. It's genuinely goofy, the lengths that this series goes to paint Naoya as being this mega misogynist. And just for a little bit of a highlight, to expand upon this further, yet again, there's no spoilers in this. This is just a really cool thing that highlights Naoya's hatred for women. Naoya is one of the characters that gets his own volume cover, specifically volume 17. In this cover, it seems as if Naoya is crushing something above his head, drenching him in blood. And a lot of people for a long time were confused by this. Maybe it's a heart or an organ, even to the point where if you Google this image, the Google bots think it's blood, but it turns out it's actually not. This is not the case. Gege himself has stated in interviews and info books that he's in fact crushing a pomegranate above his head. Why a pomegranate, you ask? Well, in many cultures, pomegranates represent, fertility and womanhood. Due to them just being filled with seeds, they are filled with the ability to give life in abundance. And here we have Naoya crushing one above his head with this cover. When I break it down like this, and I've explained the symbolism, it's kind of on the nose, because he is literally crushing the symbol of womanhood above his head and just licking it up. He's just a sick... He hates women, okay? Long story short. Quick CTA, I don't normally do these. Like, comment, subscribe. The channel is a bit dead, but I'm trying to revive it. Please help me out. Watch the videos. I beg. Now, Naoya's curse technique. Yet again, spoiler alert here if you don't want to know his curse technique, but if you've seen any of the trailers, you can probably guess what it is. Naoya managed to inherit his father's curse technique of projection sorcery at a fairly young age, and as a result, he was groomed to be the next head of the clan. But because of his curse technique, as well as his ability with it, as stated earlier, he reaches the upper levels of Grade 1 sorcerers. And to be honest, after Gojo being sealed in Shibuya, ignoring Yuta, and, as I said previously, Naobito's demise, he is kind of just one of the strongest sorcerers around at that point. He's just a really strong sorcerer overall, but after Gojo is sealed and Naobito's death, he's pretty much just the strongest person around. But with that being said, just to help you understand, I will give a brief explanation on what projection sorcery even is. And thankfully enough, it is quite succinctly explained to us during Naobito's fight with Dagon. More specifically, we find out more about it during Naobito's brief scuffle against Jogo, which leads to his death, but it's explained here. Basically, Naoya and Naobito's curse technique, as stated is projection sorcery, is very unique. The core concept of the technique revolves around animation, but to be more accurate, 24 frames of animation. The technique allows the user to plan out their movements, split within 24 increments in a single second. As long as the movements that are planned don't ignore the laws of physics too much, and their user plans out each movement in their head of the 24 movements in front of them within their field of vision, they can move ridiculously fast. On top of this, if the user touches anyone whilst their curse technique is active during said 24 movements, if the person being touched doesn't also think about their movements in 24 frame increments and doesn't abide by the curse technique, they will be frozen for a second. We see this specifically with Naobito doing it to Dagon at the start of the fight, and we also see Naoya do it in his fight with Choso, as well as in Naoya's other fights, but I will not be discussing them here. Conclusion. Overall, Naoya is a character that is really strong in both his prowess as a sorcerer and the strength of his ideals towards women. His high placement in the Zenin clan due to both his grade 1 level skill as well as him being one of Naobito's progeny make him the perfect personification of the ideals of the Zenin clan. And in this latest season of Jujutsu Kaisen, we will see how those ideals and dated philosophies about women and strength fostered by the Zenin clan will clash with the sorcerers and ideals of the modern day. But that has been Naoya Zen'in without the spoilers. Toodles my doodles, hopefully I see you in the next one. Peace.